The following program is rated TVMA. This program contains topics and viewpoints from metaphysical professionals. Topics, conversations, insights, and experiences are meant for a mature adult audience and may not be suitable for younger viewers. All insights, experiences, and conversations contained in this show are meant as informational. Always consult either legal or medical professionals when needed. Viewer discretion is advised. Welcome to Terra Turas, the Metaphysical Roundtable. 5 professional readers coming together, including Brenda Lynn, Heather Lynn, Jamie Gibson, Reverend Pat Beers, Michael, and most importantly, you, the audience. Walk with us as we cover different aspects of the metaphysical and spiritual sides of life. Bring together our insight, experience, and discussion to a roundtable event. And now, here is tonight's host.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Terra Turas, which translates in Irish into Earth Journey. I am back. I missed you last week, but I know you had a great show with Tammy, our astrologer guest, and I had a reading with her yesterday, and it was amazing. Really, really good. And so I really recommend her. And tonight we are going to talk about different types of psychic abilities. We're going to break them down into different categories. It can sometimes when you're beginning to develop your psychic abilities or you're learning about them, the energy can be confusing depending on how you actually personally receive your messages. So we are, first of all, let me introduce our panel members. We have Michael and we have Jamie Gibson.
Hello.
We have Reverend Pat Beers.
Hi, everybody.
And Heather Lynn.
Guys.
Welcome, everybody. And we are here live every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. So, first of all, just some of my experience when I started to delve into the psychic world and the intuition, I'd actually stopped drinking. So I was no longer numb to what was going on, either personally, within myself or psychically within myself. And so when I stopped drinking, it came back and I had to either learn how to deal with it or stay drunk. So staying drunk wasn't an option. And so I had to delve really deep, and I have characteristics of every psychic type that we're going to talk about tonight. That's why, like, my stuff says that I'm a hypersensitive, multisensory empath, because I feel things through all of my senses: thought, body, emotions, and spirit. So it took a while to learn how to discern that energy. One of my favorite books on the topic is by Sherry Dillard, who is a friend of mine on Facebook. And her book is called Developing Your Psychic Ability, I think, or Learning Your Psychic Type. I'll get that down for sure after a bit. But that's my experience as a psychic. And when I read her book, I was able to identify exactly what those things were. And one of the things she says here is, she says that in her book, she'll say, we'll know, for instance, that people who have witnessed the same accident will often have different accounts of it. One person may recall what people were wearing or what they looked like. Someone else may have a deep emotional reaction and feel compassion or empathy, and yet another person may analyze the situation and try to understand what happened. And she says, we develop and use our intuition in the same way without being aware of it. We accept, absorb, and interpret the non-physical world around us. This is a natural and normal function that happens continuously and without conscious awareness. So that's along the lines of the topic that we're going to talk about. So first, I would like to just kind of go around and I said what I am, a multisensory, hypersensitive empath, which is very clairsentient, but it also comes with thoughts and things like that too. So I want to go around to our panel members and just ask, like, what your experience is, and what type of a psychic would you say you are? And then I'll go through some of these on. I just printed some stuff to take a look at, so we could go through some of them. So let's start with Reverend Pat Beers.
I'm probably a little different than most of y'all. Since I've been doing this since I was 7 years old, I just always knew things. And when I had a near death at 6. And when my favorite uncle passed when I was 7, I knew he was there when nobody else could see him. I knew he would touch my head and do the noggin noogie and call me buckshot. He always did. I would feel things. I just always knew things. And I never knew I was different until I was about 16. And then it became obvious that my friends were not seeing and hearing and feeling the same things I was. So it was really kind of, my family, and my paternal grandmother's Delaware Indian. And my maternal grandmother is English. And it was very interesting because I'm second youngest of 8. I'm the only one in the family that does this. Now my sister, who was 12 and a half years older than me, who was second oldest, I'm second youngest, worked as a ward secretary in a hospital. And I'm giggling because she would get these feelings. She had to go down and see Mrs. Smith, or she had to go down and see Mr. Jones. And she worked the 11 to 7 shift. So there was often no one else around. And she would go in and she would just be with them. And she never knew why. And then when she was in her early 50s, she went, and a lady actually passed while she was with her. And she saw the ectoplasm leave the body, this little white puff, and it scared the bejeebers out of her because she didn't know what it was. And I said, sis, it's normal. So, and she says, why do I keep doing this? I don't want to do this. And I said, because they need you there. They do not want to be alone. They know that you will comfort them and that you love them in your own way. And so this went on for years. But like I said, I just knew when the school bus was going to be late, when we were having a substitute teacher. I just knew things. And it was, let me tell you, many moons ago, this was not a popular thing to have. And then when I was 31 and had the second near death, I could shut it off. When I turned about 20, became overwhelming. I didn't know what to do with it. I didn't know how to protect myself. I didn't know how to stop. If I go to the grocery store, it was like being in the middle of a basketball court and having everybody yelling at me. And I told Spirit and the angels that I can't do this. I couldn't go to the grocery store and put my groceries on the mat that takes the stuff forward because I couldn't breathe. It was like, I was being screamed at. And that happened to me about twice a year. And I finally said to them, you know what? I'm not going to do this anymore. I can't control it. Leave me alone. Don't come to me. And I managed to avoid it until I was in my late 20s. And then when I had the second near death at 31, there was no shutting it off anymore. So I just told Spirit, make my messages clear, concise, complete. Don't tell me anything I can't do something about, because I'm sure you all felt before 9/11 the same thing. We were all like, oh my gosh, what's going on? We don't know what to do. So you just start praying for the highest and best. And then I thank God for allowing me to be an instrument of the work and being able to give people the information they need to make the decisions they need to make. And that helped me a lot. But you have to learn to kind of set some boundaries. That was the biggest thing for me.
Great. That to me, those categories, according to Sherry Dillard's book, I think she would say that you are probably first mental, then physical and spiritual. That's how she breaks them down. Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Heather.
Oh, it totally bleeped out. You did say me, right?
I did.
Okay. So, gosh, well, just like what Pat was saying, I just kind of always knew stuff when I was little. I didn't really, I was taught, the religion that I was brought up in taught that it was, you were working with the devil. If you were anything having to do with spirits or divination, or, you know, how kids play those little games, light as a feather, stiff as a board, or we used to play where you would just ask questions with cards, and, you know, black was one color, or, you know, yes or no for black or red, whatever. But I would just know weird things. I would have dreams about, you know, somebody being pregnant, and then I would find out that they were pregnant, or, you know, somebody being sick or whatever. But I didn't, I really had no idea. And my mom was always super intuitive. And I guess it kind of, it would, for whatever reason, it was just always pushed to the back, you know, and I always, I didn't realize that a lot of the things that I was feeling were other people's thoughts and feelings and energy and stuff. But I suffered, with, you know, mental illness, depression, anxiety, bipolar, all the stuff that I was diagnosed with. And then when I finally had my awakening in 2016, so it just all happened at once, and I communicated with my aunt who passed away, and it was just, my life has never been the same since then. And so it's been interesting to see and to feel it unfold, because I remember a couple months after I was awakened, and again, I was very new. I was like, the person helping me, I was like, am I going to just like open my eyes and see some creepy dead person? Like, I was scared. Yeah, that's exactly. She's like, no, you're not, you know. And my first time I went into an antique shop, and it was, I swear that they were waiting for me. And by they, I just mean the energies that be. And I almost felt like I was going to get knocked out of the door just walking in, because I was aware of what I was feeling and sensing. And I remember picking up one of this old like hairbrush and mirror sets, you know, like they would sit in front of their mirror and comb their hair. And I could just see this woman. I picked it up, and I just had this vision, and I was like, whoa, what is this? So I experienced it kind of like Brenda was saying. However Spirit decides is the best way to convey the message that the people need, that's how I get it. If, you know, and I've been around my friend, I'd be like, why does it smell like roses? You know, what's that really strong? It's like somebody's putting roses up to my nose. And she'll be like, oh, that's, you know, probably my grandma, or, you know, something. So it's really amazing to get to experience it in all of its forms. I do a lot of writing too. I like to channel information. It's all super amazing to me. I do remember I had my first encounter with, you know, like the angels, so to speak. That was incredibly, incredibly intense. And to just see them standing before you, I was just completely moved to tears. So yeah, like Brenda, I love how you term that I can never remember, multi-sensor, dang it. However you describe it, that I resonate with that. And I think because I'm newer awakened, I won't say I'm new at this. I've been doing it for who knows how many years, but I guess I just assumed that everybody got it in the different ways that I did. But one of the newest ones for me, to my awareness, is telepathy. I have been noticing, and I'm sure I've done this before, but now I'm noticing that I am hearing people's thoughts. And sometimes it's very, I mean, I don't tap into it intentionally, but there have been times that I've gotten things. I'm like, oh, what are they thinking that for? You know, and it's just really interesting dynamic to the whole empath thing.
Very cool. I think that in her book, she would say, in Sherry Dillard's book, she would say that you are emotional and mental. Yeah.
I don't disagree with that.
Jamie.
Yes. It's just confusing. I didn't know that I did this, honestly, until I was in my 30s. I had no idea that I was doing this, so I was late to the game. But I just know what I know, and I can't explain it. And I feel everybody around me, whether I want to or not, I feel it. So those are my two primary gifts, you could call it. I mean, I'm trying to build up on the other ones too that I can talk about later, but those are the two primary ones. And I started to find out or realize that this is what I do, because people would just tell me things. I'm one of those people, since I was a little kid, they'll just come in, sit down, and they'll tell me their whole life story and their darkest secrets. And I'm like, I didn't ask you anything. Don't tell me. Why are you telling me this? They just spill it, right? I know things about people that nobody else knows. And I didn't ask a question, but apparently they just feel good because there's something that I'm giving off. Or maybe my angels behind me are saying, tell her, which thanks a lot. But when I was in my 30s, I was going through a divorce. And, you know, when you go through a divorce, you're trying to figure out the answers to life and all the sad stuff and whatever. And that's when I picked up my first deck of tarot cards. And I started playing with them. And, you know, I was following the instructions, reading all of what this card means and this card means. And then I started just doing layouts for friends and my daughter's friends. And I quit really looking at what it was supposed to be and just kind of talked with what it was. And, you know, one of my favorite ones is my now son-in-law, who at the time he wasn't, he sat down, he's like, do my cards. So I did them, and I was like, you know, I don't know anything, and I'm probably full of shit. Sorry. But, you know, I'm just going with this. And I just started talking, and he sat there very stone-faced, didn't say anything. And then afterwards, I'm like, you know, I don't know. Don't pay attention to me. You know, it's all cool. And he got up, went out and had a cigarette. My daughter followed him, and he grilled her. He's like, why did you tell your mom this and this and this? She's like, I didn't tell mom any of those things. He's like, then how did she know? She's like, because this is what she does. So, you know, and so that's kind of where it goes. You know, when I do readings, there's times when I say some of the most outrageous things. And I'm like, I don't know why I'm saying this, and they're like, that's exactly what that person said. And I'm like, okay, good. Because I'm not hearing it. I'm not seeing it. I just know it. And I feel it. Those are my two biggest ones. But, you know, there's other ones. I smell a lot too, like Heather. I'll smell things a lot of times on certain situations. And there's this other really cool thing where Lisa Williams taught me that you have the client put their hand in water and, you know, think about their questions and whatnot. And then they take their hands out of the water, and I put my hands in the water, and I get all of their information from that. It's like the coolest thing. I've never done that before, but that's something that is really interesting, because there's all kinds of different clairs, but mine is pretty much clairsentient and empath. That's just me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you hit every one of them. Yeah,
I did.
You did. Cool. You did. I think heaviest in mental and spiritual. Yeah.
Yeah.
Heather's got some spiritual too there, and Pat.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we're all going to hit them. I'm just talking about the ones that were strong, like if you were to take the questionnaire in her book, where you'd come up strongest. Yeah.
What does empath fall in those 3 areas? Or
well,
just curious.
I think it falls in. Yeah, it falls into all of them. She doesn't. She uses those terms some in the book. I think I'm remembering. It's been a long time since I read it.
Yeah.
But she empath would be probably emotional.
Yeah, because I'm heavy on that.
Yeah. Yeah, but you also have but you also have a knowing, that clairvoyant, just a knowing, and that you're really strong in that, where you say, I don't know, I don't feel anything, I don't sense anything, I just know. And that's when you say, maybe I'm full of shit, but hey, this is what I'm getting. This is what's coming. That to me is mental, when you don't have anything else coming at you, right? So I think that's your strongest one, which is what most people want to be, because it's not a whole lot. It's really, especially when you're beginning this, if you are going to begin it, it is really stressful to go places when you're trying to figure out what it is. And man, when you walk through the aisles, I swear sometimes the eyeshadow cries, depending on where it was made, because I'll go all the way to wherever it was made, so that, because every single thing has a story, and there's a feeling that comes along with it. And so, man, I did a lot of crying, and I did a lot of laughing, and I'm sure that I looked all kinds of when I was beginning, because it is a crazy, crazy process to begin with. Yeah. Guess who's next, Michael? Yeah.
That guy over there. For me, it was one of those things. I took this for granted for most of my life. Honestly. Because and even after I was married, Shelley tells me, that people don't view things the same way. People don't see things the same way. They don't hear the same thing. This all started when I was 5. So 45 years now, I've been living just this lifestyle. This is who I am. And when I was very young, it was very difficult, like everybody. You start becoming more empathic. You start becoming in tune with seeing spiritual people, It's that person passed. Why are they here? And I would ask, did you see? And people would look at me like I was an absolute flake. It's a wonder that my mom didn't try to take me to have psychotherapy or something. Thankfully, my grandfather, who is a lot of Native American ancestry, this is where it comes from, as well as the other side of the pond, Irish and Welsh. I've got a smattering of all of it. But he would take the time to tell me stories that sometimes I could relate to, sometimes I couldn't when I was very young. As I grew up and grew older, they made more sense. But trying to navigate that world of what you're feeling that is not your emotion, what you are hearing when there is no one else around, and sitting and having a conversation, people look at you like, you got rocks in your head. Well, okay. When I was in high school, people used to go, hey, man, you want to try some of these drugs? You want to try some weed? You want to... why do I need that? I can take a trip all by myself just sitting in a room. I don't need that. You guys talk about tripping out and seeing things. Come live in my shoes for a couple of hours. We'll talk about a trip. But it's all of those things. You see it, you hear it, the knowing part. The knowing part at times, even now, makes my own jaw drop, because I talk with people and certain things just come right out. Well, I didn't feel it. I didn't hear it. Nobody told me. And they will stop dead and go, why did you use those words or that phrase? Or how did you... It's not me, folks. This is me being a conduit for what I do. You know, but we all have those gifts, thankfully. Oh, Lord. I got to step back 25 years, 24 years. Thank God. I online, of all things. You get the weirdest things online. I made a connection with my mentor who has passed a few years ago. And he was able to teach me. And this is when long distance still cost money. And I had a horrendous phone bill because he lived in Memphis, Tennessee, and I'm here in Ohio. And I would talk with Richard every night. Every night we were on the phone for at least an hour to 2 hours. And my ex-wife at the time had an absolute conniption because she couldn't understand. We were both raised in the Christian church. I have a very strong theological background. But she could not transition from, and had a hard time dealing with at that point in time because we were both young. We were in our 20s. But I talked with him every night to try to learn how can I better equip myself so that when I have this wave in the store of absolute disgust, that I don't turn around and speak what is on my mind. The emotion will elicit. It elicits tears. It elicits anger, you know. Or when you go walking into an old store in an old town, and your physical brain sees 2 or 3 people, and you're looking at 13, 15 people walking around in the store. And you have to differentiate in your mind how are you seeing, or, you know, so it took, I would probably say, 4 years of Richard and I working together, and it was all progressive. It was all, thank God he knew what he was doing, and he helped me walk through so many different things to be able to become comfortable in myself and what I do. And then, even then, it was that process of, because I do it because I'm comfortable, as part of my life all the time, I think everybody does the exact same thing. And even there are times now, well, why didn't you think of that? I thought about this, and why isn't it not dawning on you? And Shelley will be quick to remind me, just remember what the word normal means. You're not normal. Well, no shit, love. That's 100% true. You know, and it is that thing that when we can get together at psychic fairs, or we get together at shops or spiritual retreats, and we can be around like-minded people, just like this group, thank God it feels like home. There's no boundaries, there's no walls, none of us have to be defensive, but we walk out into public, and for most of it now, it has become an automatic thing. Put the walls up, try to squeeze everything in so you are not feeling somebody that's 20 feet away that is having a bad day or angry or whatever. And the ones that kill me the most, people that are drunk. It gives me such a sickly feeling when you even talk to them. You know their words are slurred for a reason. Your brain automatically knows that. But to feel that, oh. You know, and there's worse out there. And those are some of the things that I had to learn how to deal with in working with him on one case for the police. The things that I felt, it took me months to get over that feeling. I don't want to feel those things, and yet this is what I do. This is who I am. And Pat and I have had many conversations that you don't get to pick and choose. If you are going to say the light switch is on, you don't get to pick and choose what you see, feel, hear. You run the whole gambit, and you're either going to do it or you're not. You can minimize how it would impact you, but you don't get to pick and choose what you see, hear, feel, understand. And it sometimes would throw you off in the worst of ways. That's me.
Right, because you want to see all of what you're seeing. Yeah.
You want to have a better understanding. I wouldn't say that I want to see it all. There are people that I work with, because we work on a phone line, that call and say, well, you know, and I love people But please remember, the readers that you're talking with, don't ask them, so are we going to be intimate tonight? I don't want to know. I don't want to know. Because again, you don't get to pick and choose what you see. I don't want to, thankfully, the Spirit has come along and allowed me to be PG-13. If they're going to go off and do something, I get to stand in the hallway while the door shuts. That was the biggest blessing for me, because I blush.
So that's how you know.
But I blush easily. Pat knows it. I am hypersensitive to that. And you would think as a guy, oh yeah, I'm going to stand there. No, I don't want to see that. No,
Well, you definitely fall into the mental, emotional, and physical category. Probably strongest mental is my feeling there, because you have a lot of error in your astrology too. So I bet you that would be about right. And I think that a lot of men are more mental than they are emotional when they're readers.
Yes.
Just in general, it's just part of it. What you're talking about reminds me of a friend of mine, and we used to get together, and fellowship. We're still part of that same fellowship. But I would walk into the room, and his energy would be reaching out and touching everybody and everything, and I'd walk into the room, and he'd go just like that, and he wasn't even aware of it. He had no idea. So he would say, your conversation with Shelley reminds me of this. So I finally had an opportunity to tell him, after a year of him, thinking that everybody was just not as smart as he was. He thought he was smarter than everybody else because, he would see things as a dominoes effect. Well, if you do that, then this is going to happen, and then that's going to happen, and then this and this and this, and he'd go all the way there. And then somebody wouldn't take his advice, and he'd watch the whole thing unfold, and then it's just like, man, again, And I finally said, listen, dear, you are not smarter than everybody else. You're psychic. That's a psychic thought, and it's a mental psychic thought. When you can go to that extent to, and I do some of that too, that extent to, see what the dominoes effect is going to be if you take this fork, or you go this way or that way, so.
Here's a question for you. When you talk about pathways, forks, and different things, how long did it take you to become, I want to say, perceptually aware that what you were seeing was, if they make this choice, it's going to go in that direction? Because I believe that we all are similar, that we see all of these pathways almost all at the same time, so that we're aware of all of them. How old were you, or how far along were you when you finally realized, oh my God, these are all different pathways? Any of these can happen based upon what they do.
Since I can remember, it's always been that way. I've always been a go-to person since I was a kid. And so just since I can remember. But it was when I had to decide to deal with it later on in life that I realized and I recognized. And there again, when I was watching my friend, I was just watching him, and I didn't get it out of a book. I saw it psychically, that it was psychic vision, or psychic thought is what I called it. That is psychic thought, when you can look at things in that way. And a lot of people have that skill. And again, I want to remind our viewers too, as we talk about these things, just because, we're a panel of psychics and intuitives talking about these things, and you might relate, it doesn't mean you have to go out there and go get crystal balls and tip tables or, whatever. We're just, cueing you in as to what it is, because there are a lot of people that have that ability stronger than others. And, there are certain brain testing that will call it something else, in psychology terms. Michael.
I'm the same way. For all the people that watch television shows about readers, and you have the ability, does not
Look,
mean
anything.
you need to run out and try to be the Long Island medium.
No,
Please.
or any of them.
Please don't do that.
Or even do a show live on Facebook. It's not mandatory. It's just, hopefully it's helpful, to help you understand
Sure.
I think
what it is.
I think it's more normal than people know that it is. Honestly.
Yeah.
I think it's
I
just
do too.
people that are a little bit more in tune, like, the five of us and other people, we're willing to kind of like look at it from other angles. But, a lot of my clients, and I even tell them, I said, I'm probably going to put myself out of business because I'm going to tell you, you've got the ability to figure this out. You have the same sort of gift that I have. It's just a matter of learning to trust it. And I've got lots of clients that come to me that they're empaths. They've got strong intuition. And I try to encourage them to just, play with it, work with it a little bit for yourself, and get comfortable with it. Because I feel like it's more normal than everybody wants to admit.
I would
Really,
agree.
I do too.
I would definitely agree. People ask me much the same thing. Well, if I'm gifted, how come I can't do what you do? I said, look, this is not a slam on anybody. And I tell people that, look, we all start in grade school. And dependent upon how much we use it, we transfer all the way through upper high school. And some of us may graduate high school. When you become more of a professional reader, you've got the experience. You've taken not only the 4-year college degree, you've probably taken the 8-year master's course. So it's just we are on different levels of education or different levels of understanding. That's it.
I just
and it also,
it's just a muscle you have to tone.
Right. Exactly. And not everybody wants to tone that muscle. Not everybody not everybody is as interested in it as we are.
Right.
So, but you can always, to Jamie's point, and that's where, like, I think we hope to be helpful is you can always lead with your intuition, lead your life with your intuition, no matter what it is that you have. And so, talking about these things and kind of breaking them down, you can find yourself in here. There's something I found online about how to know if you really have or the some of them call them the signs and symptoms that you may be clairaudient or clairvoyant or clairsentient. And this one here is on clairaudience, and it says clairaudience is a lot more than simply hearing voices in your head. Clairaudience is the audio; it's the ears hearing. And then it says the main differences between having mental illness and being clairaudient are very obvious if you know what to look for. Both conditions might include hearing voices in your head. That's where the similarities stop. And it goes on to say, clairaudience can sometimes have a level of control over the voices. And they can discern the difference between, spirit and a memory. And, like if you have a memory, you oftentimes hear things. Whenever I think of my grandmother, for example, I automatically hear her voice, either one of them, or my grandfather's, or anybody else, even somebody in body, I will hear them when I think about them. I would recognize Jamie's voice on the phone or in person or by memory.
Or by
so, yeah. Yeah.
People often,
yeah, or telepathy.
Yeah.
What did you say, Pat?
How do they know? How do you know you're psychic? And I say, do you get gut feelings?
Mm-hmm.
And they go, well, yeah, once in a while. And I go, you're not on the same level I am, but that's one of the things that happens is you just, stuff, or, like you said, you smell, you taste, you hear, whatever. I do not hear voices unless it's important to say to you, I hear a soft voice, or I hear a very gruff voice, or I hear a squeaky voice.
Mm-hmm.
I just hear the thought. And people get terrified. And a lot of times I'm going crazy, I'm losing my mind. No, you're not. You're just having a spiritual experience in a human body. It's nothing to be
Right. Right. And so most of the time I look for spirit voice in my mind, or if I'm reading something, a situation or something like that, but especially spirit voice, because sometimes I've gotten it in my ear and it's a really shrill, fast chirping, and I can't catch it. So I look for it in my mind instead. A lot of, another thing that is clairaudient is, oftentimes I could be talking to somebody, or I'm talking to somebody. And in both sides of the conversation, I can say something that the other person needed to hear, or they'll say something to me that I needed to hear. That's usually spirit slipping through. Or have you ever answered somebody and they said, well, I was just about to ask you that. I didn't ask. I didn't say that. You caught it before they asked it. That's something that happens with me too. Sometimes we can hear a song on the radio that'll bring back a memory, or that music or that song or the lyrics will pertain to a reading later on that day. Have you had that happen? Yeah. So those are all things that are clairaudient. But these are like this writer says the 7 signs and symptoms of clairaudience. So you tend to talk to yourself all day long. All day long.
They're always like, are you talking to yourself again, Heather?
Yeah.
Sometimes I need expert advice.
No, I answer myself. And I told my son that. He's like, yeah, but you answer yourself with a different voice, Mom. I'm like, oh, okay.
Who knew?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's funny. Okay, and it says
the song one.
Oh. The song one?
Yeah, when I first really awakened, I would and now still also, but it was really cool to me in the beginning when I would feel somebody that passed on was playing a song for me. And a few times it was not it's not always that the song is being played for me, but the song will come out, or before it even comes on, I'll be like, oh, this is for somebody else. And it will be, somebody I'm connected to. It's just a very interesting how many strange connections I've had through songs. People I've never, ever met trying to connect with somebody. And I'm just like, this person is playing you this song. It's really
or you could hear a song and think of somebody and go, oh, I want to call that person.
Mm-hmm.
And that you think that it's just a random thought, but you're actually guided to call that person because of the song.
I did that.
And that was something that's not that one is not in the write-up. That's just something I came up with. What did you say, Michael?
I did that once sitting at a restaurant. I was trying so hard to mind my own business, and the waitress, doing her job, kept coming back, and every time she started to get near, I would hear Barry Manilow singing a very obscure, not one of his top-rated hits, and I didn't know the name of it, and I tried to tell her, and finally, and I told her, I said, I keep hearing this music, I honestly don't know. I said, I know that it's from... So did you end
up singing it?
Pardon?
Did you end up singing it for her?
Oh, my God, no. I love to sing. I was in choir. I've been in theater. I love doing it. But no, not in the middle of a restaurant. But I told her, I said, I know this is coming from your dad. And it freaked her out. I said, I'm not going to go into a lot of this because I don't know what your belief system is, and I don't want to wreck your day. It's just I hear it. I know it's from your dad. And I apologize that I don't know the name of the song. Well, when I got home, it's still playing in my brain. So I looked it up online, and the lyrics to that song fit her so well. I ended up calling the restaurant, asking for her, and telling her, all I want you to do, I said, here's the song by Barry Manilow. When you have time, go check it out. Look at the lyrics. I went back a month later. She looked at me. She goes, we're not doing this shit again, are we? I said, what's wrong? She goes, you scared me because what the lyrics said were the same things my father used to tell me. Exactly. And I said, I'm glad that made that connection because you were missing your dad. She goes, we're not doing this again. I said, I'm good. But again, that's awesome. Part of the clairaudience, that people hear things that they have to relate to whomever they're speaking to.
Right. Yeah. I've been having songs in my head for reasons that are a little unknown right now. But I've been trying to pay attention to that because I get up and it's quiet and all of a sudden this song will start playing in my head. And a lot of times it's not a song I like. So I'm like, okay, y'all get out of my head. I don't want to listen to that song in my head. Oh,
yeah.
Eli Stone, the TV show. Do you remember that?
No, I don't want to. Don't sing it.
No, the TV show. The TV show was called Eli Stone, and he had an aneurysm in his mind to where he heard George Michael singing all of the songs, and they related to what was happening in the show. It just made me think of that because I was going to ask you, I was like, oh, you're listening to heavy metal now, are you?
No, but I like George Michael, so that was okay. Thank you. Okay, so some other signs and symptoms. You give others profound advice. If you find yourself offering great advice to others but have no idea where you got those ideas, it's possible that those signs came from spirit speaking through you. That's the kind of thing I was talking about with the conversation. Another one she says here is you comfort others. If you find you find you're comforting others a lot, and especially if you have taken to doing it as a career path, you might be clairaudient. So a lot of times, therapists and psychologists and social workers can be clairaudient as well. And a lot of these also play into the others. What did you say, Jamie?
That in bartenders.
Yes. Oh yeah, I was
hairdressers. All of that.
Yes, exactly. You hear buzzing and ringing in your ears. Now I know we all get that. That's a lot of times it tends to manifest quickly and dissipate after seconds or minutes. That happens a lot. This often serves as a sign that spirit is looking for your attention or that they are looking to relay some important information. So whenever I hear that ringing, I immediately just pay attention to what's going on around me and to my thoughts, right? You hear radio, talking noises, or whispering in the distance. That's psychic hearing. You ever do that? You know what somebody's saying across the room?
Believe it or not.
Mike?
This is still on topic. You're not going to shoot me, I swear to God.
Okay.
I used to work in an office building that because they had so many people crammed together during the day, we all had cubicles, that they installed a white noise generator. And they left it on all day. Well, I transitioned to working during the midnight hours.
Oh, boy.
So this white noise, and there were times it would creep me out, and I would go and shut it off, and I used to get in trouble because I forgot to turn it back on. But there was one night, I'm sitting in my cubicle, and I'm working, and 8 cubicles away, it's like somebody's got an old AM radio, and I'm listening to an old ball game being broadcast on the radio. And I'm like, it got me so much that I actually thought somebody left the radio on. I went in search of this and could never find it, of course, until it dawned on me, like, duh. But I could not hear who was playing, and that made me upset because I listened to the entire ball game, and there was cheers and laughing and clapping and the commentator making comments, and I'm like, that's what people hear, and they think that they're going insane. Or they don't know what to do with that kind of information that comes to them.
Right. And in my experience, spirit comes through electronics and stuff like that. White noise would definitely be their medium to come through. So for sure. Number 6 is you get sudden inspiration or ideas during mundane tasks all day long. I do. If you're clairaudient, then one sign is if you have sudden inspiration come to you while driving, showering, or other mundane tasks. These times tend to serve as the ideal time for spirit to give you solutions to your problems and ideas to improve your life. Yeah, we hear that.
Yeah, we do. Do any of you ever notice that sometimes your eyes, your sight is a little off? And people would get very worried. And I got very worried about it when I was much younger. I was in, I think, my late 30s, early 40s. And I went, had my eyes checked. There's nothing there. And I noticed that within the week, my inner vision, not only was I seeing things like we often do, I mean, I was seeing things. They were playing them out in front of me. So I get the buzzing in my ears, I know my inner hearing is going. If my sight does that, I know that I'm going to start seeing things more clearly, or something's coming up that I need to really closely pay attention to what I'm getting visually for this person. So it's
like
just
a psychic vision.
Yeah.
Right.
And I just want to say I don't get either one of those things. So I just want to say that to other people. I don't get the ringing in the ears. I don't get the vision thing, but I'm psychic. But I never have experienced either of those things that you guys are talking about. So I'm just pointing that out to people. Just because you don't get all of these things doesn't mean that you don't have it.
Right.
And we are going to go.
Letting them know if it does happen to them. Don't freak out like I did. Know that this may be just a process. Yeah.
This is just clairaudient that we're on right now. We've got more. We got more. And then the last one, and then we'll take a break because we're almost 10 minutes past break time, is you hear messages that seem to be tailored to you. That, I guess, was what I was talking about with conversation. You might hear messages through radio or television, sometimes a movie. I think, Jamie, you and I were talking about that recently, about how you're drawn to certain movies during certain times that have certain messages for you that pertain, that are in the plot of the movie. Yeah. And if spirit might be using another human vehicle to get a message delivered to you. And spirit tends to quiet down the world around us so that we can hear, what we need to hear to help with ourselves or with others. And, sometimes it can be noisy, and we'll hear the messages anyway, from somebody. Yeah. So when we come back, we can talk about, we'll talk about clairsentient, which I think that's like Jamie and I are strongly clairsentient, and clairvoyance. And we'll talk about tools that we use, or the option of not using tools, and sort of the difference. So with that, we'll see you here in about 3 minutes.
Divine Awakening's New Age Emporium and Healing Arts Shop. It's the largest locally owned and operated metaphysical retailer in the Sandusky, Ohio Tri-County area. Serving the Firelands region since April of 2014, they're pleased to offer a space that is welcoming, relaxing, and open to everyone. In the Emporium, you will find a variety of unique gifts, special events and services, as well as classes and workshops to soothe your mind, body, and spirit. If you're in the Sandusky, Ohio area, look for Divine Awakenings at 1006 Tiffin Avenue, Sandusky, Ohio. Their phone number is 419-502-9137, and you can find them on Facebook at /Divine Awakenings LLC. Just as a quick note for people that are watching the show or catching up later, possibly listening, all of us as panel members have the capability that we offer consultations for people that need to connect with us for any of the various things that we can do to help. At the top of our Facebook page so far, we have links to, if you wanted to connect with either Brenda, Jamie, myself, Pat, or Heather, just click on the link that is underneath their name. It'll take you to their page, and you'll be able to get more information about how to connect with them and how to get things done. Okay, Brenda.
All righty. So we just talked about being clairaudient. Now we're going to talk about being clairsentient, and pretty sure we all relate to this. This is where the Heather, the being a multi-sensory, hypersensitive empath comes in. So there's quite a few on here. So I'm going to kind of go through the list, and then you might want to get your pen and paper out if you got one you want to talk about, because I'll go through 6 of them here. So signs you may be clairsentient, someone who feels things very deeply. You are very sensitive to your feelings. You're very selective about who you spend time with because you're sensitive to your own feelings. So, we can even cry at movies. It's not even a real person. You can perceive the true root of people's problems pretty immediately and with clarity. You are fascinated by things that are ancient or historical. You have an extraordinary ability to empathize to the point that you can even put yourself in the mindset of people whom you disagree with strongly or who have hurt you in the past. In this, you can find true healing and compassion. And we can also find a really bad relationship cycle in that because we're forgiving all the time and doing the same thing over and over and over. And even though you keep your inner circle small, you are a social butterfly. You seem to, you have a charm about you with just about anyone you meet. And this is because you can perceive how they would best connect or resonate with you. So, what did y'all think of those? Heather, do you relate?
Yes, 100%. Yes.
Any comments on any of those?
All the feels. Well, the last one that you just said about Oh, so my day job, I sell used cars. And I literally just tell people that my job is peopling because that's what I do. And like Jamie said earlier in the show, people just come to you. I mean, people come in my office to buy a car, and like 35 minutes later, we haven't done any paperwork, but I've heard their entire life story, you know, or just like you can sense that I have, I've learned I have the skill or a strength of making people feel comfortable. And I think when you said you sense what they need, where they're at, we just have this inner knowing of how to interact with that person and how to relate in that moment with them. So I definitely relate to that.
Yeah, and interesting how these things intertwine with being clairaudient. Remember when I was saying they get intertwined. So here's another sign or symptom. A few of them here. You have always struggled with your emotions in life. You've had to learn how to not let your feelings totally engulf you, because at times they do. Oh, in the astrology reading yesterday, Tammy asked me, so were you shy, or did you have any, did you stutter or anything like that? And I said, no, I cried all the time. Because that was me. I cried all the time. I cried about everything. Happy tears, sad tears. There was always a reason to cry. Anybody else do that as a kid? Heather?
I still, when I get really angry, yep, I cry, which is really the opposite of what I want to happen, because I don't look very mad when I'm crying. Frustrating for
not very threatening.
It's not very threatening. Nobody's scared. They're like, why are you crying?
Right. So you become uncomfortable in cluttered, dark spaces and always gravitate toward areas that are naturally bright and airy. So I guess I do that. But when I first started, I wanted darkness. Anybody else?
Yeah.
Like when you're going through that dark night period, or that
sometimes
that period where
it feels safer to be in a cocoon, and that dark, cluttered feeling feels like a cocoon to me sometimes.
Yeah.
Wholeheartedly agree. It is that space where you don't have to deal with anybody, don't have to see much of anything. You try to limit what you hear. It's that being able to turn the world off somehow.
I just did that to Brenda tonight. I'm like, that's what I want for the next 2 weeks, please. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're not only a deep feeler, you're also a deep thinker. Oh my goodness. Yeah.
Overthinker.
Yeah.
Yup.
So what I do is when I'm trying to figure something out, is I do this thinking and feeling and thinking and feeling and thinking and feeling, and I just keep going and going and going and going, and then I come down, from it. But that's kind of what happens when I'm trying to figure something out, or if I'm reading a difficult energy. It's like that too.
Mm-hmm.
You likely utilize claircognizance along with your clairsentience. Once you pick up on the feeling or vibration of a person, place, or situation, you also use clear thinking to discern what's really happening. Yeah, like I just kind of described, or any important information that you need to know.
Yeah.
You understand that everyone and everything alive is inherently an energy field. And for me, that's even not alive. Everything has a story, right, Heather?
Yes.
Sometimes you have strong feelings that are triggered by small, seemingly unimportant things. This means you're becoming aware of a trauma point that needs to be healed. Most people are able to just ignore those discomforts as they arise, but because you can't, you're forced to heal them and learn from them. I think that goes to some of that dark night of the soul stuff we talked about in a previous show.
Here's a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
Where does psychometry fall into that?
Psychometry, I think, falls into a combination of clairsentience and clairaudience, or clairsentience and
Clairvoyance, wouldn't it be?
clairvoyance. Exactly, combination of the two, because you do get imprints, don't you think, Jamie?
Yeah.
What do you feel
Yeah.
on that?
No, I feel it's a lot of clairsentient, but I also feel that you can start to kind of see something too from it. You know what I mean? You can start to almost kind of, I'm going to sound like such a sci-fi geek, but it's, you know, kind of like opening a vortex to be able to go in and
Right.
see something while you're holding that item.
To me, it was an oddity because I had never really spoken to anybody about it. It was a tool, if you will, a capability that I would put to use when needed or as needed, until I met Pat. And Pat even gave me some pointers on working with psychometry that helped out amazingly well. Because I know Pat, she's very careful. If you ever watch her when she's at a fair, her hands are tucked in, and she does not automatically reach out to touch things. I watched the last couple of shows that I went with her, and it dawned on me why. Because there may be things that she doesn't want to see, she doesn't want to feel, she doesn't want, nobody's asking her. It's just all of a sudden you see her walking around. Now she'll hug people, she'll shake hands, everything. But physical items, unless she's going to purchase it or unless somebody is handing it to her, she won't pick things up like that.
Yeah.
I just consider it like a respect thing, because you know how kids are in stores. They want to touch everything. And unless I'm interested in it, I don't want to leave my energy on it, nor do I want to pick up someone else's energy that's already been playing with it. So, yeah.
I relate to that too. And that I don't like to have a lot. I don't go and have massages. I don't go and have a lot of Reiki treatments. I do my own Reiki, but I know exactly how I do it. I don't put my energy in. I don't take energy out. But I don't like to do a lot of energy mingling for that reason too. Yeah.
See, and I just started doing massage. It's funny you bring up massages. I just started doing it. I'm not licensed or anything yet, but as my part of my naturopath degree, we do body work, and I am realizing how significant it is for us, and how for my path specifically, because you pick up so much, and I always set an intent, like you're saying, I'm not taking anything of yours, I'm not taking it when we're done, right. Very strong boundaries in that sense. But man, is it just mind-blowing what you pick up. I mean, I know we're already super sensitive. We don't need to do body work, those things. But the things that I feel, and I guess what I'm thinking in my head is I actually massage like a mother, and a week later I massaged her daughter. And obviously due to confidentiality, I didn't discuss anything amongst either one of them, but it was very interesting to feel how, what the daughter was carrying that I know came from the mother, and from just
emotional transference.
And just the emotions kept inside of them, and I could feel just generations of women and their family, and it's very interesting connection and a very interesting dynamic to add to my healing repertoire, so to speak.
See, I like getting massages because that's one of my ways. I haven't done it in a while, but it's one of my releasing. Like, it's almost like I don't like saunas and that kind of thing, but to me, getting a massage is like a sauna where it's sweating out. With the massage, it's pushing it out, especially if you've got somebody really good that's just kind of like, you can feel them pushing it out for you. That's why I love them. I just need to start doing them.
That's again. Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I get massage once a month from an energy worker. And then I'll go see another friend who does strictly Reiki and bars and Amanahuna and everything, whatever she feels is appropriate at that time. And that's my recharge time. That's my time to really let go of the stuff that I didn't know I was still holding.
Yeah.
And they help me
Right.
to do.
Yeah. And I like to do that through exercise, walking, kind of pounding it out. But I'm sensitive to other people's energy.
Right.
And I have a lot of energy, I have grief, from the past and stuff like that I don't want to transfer to somebody else. But Heather, that was the first thing I saw, is the emotional transference from the mother to the daughter, and some to the daughter, from the daughter to the mother, but most from the mother to the daughter. Yeah, that might be an interesting topic, actually, like the generational energy transference. It's very interesting.
It reminds me,
because I'm sure you guys have sensed that in readings before, when you're somebody and you can sense this line of X, Y, and Z through, really, it's interesting dynamic, like I said.
What were you going to say, Mike?
it just reminded me very quickly of the age-old adage, the sins of the father are paid for by the son.
Yeah.
That's a lot of energetic transference. I'm not going to call it karma, because we all carry our own karma. It's just how it goes. You might be right. That might be something interesting to trip into.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, if you're introverted, there's a good chance that it could be because you're actually a wounded extrovert. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
In my astrology reading, we talked about Chiron and the wounded healer, but that's very interesting. Could be from a past life too. Even besides just being that way. So if you're extroverted, you're a highly sensitive extrovert. So I feel like those of us on the panel here are very introverted, but not antisocial.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just picky.
Yeah. Yeah, picky. Exactly. I think Heather and Pat are probably the most extroverted of us. Yeah. Yeah.
He's nodding his head furiously, yes. But in my own space, though, like, I don't have a lot of people come to my place. I want to be in my own space.
Right.
I want there to be, when it's time to socialize, I'm all for it. But I am a person that really needs my own space and really needs my
balance
own too. Yes.
Right. Balance.
Sometimes. Excuse me.
Go ahead, Pat. I'm sorry.
Sometimes, Heather, do you feel like Jekyll and Hyde? Because I can be very extroverted when I'm working, and when I come home, it's like, leave me alone. I turn off the ringer on my phone. I take the other phone off the hook. So people go, "You're Jekyll and Hyde." Yeah, I am.
Yeah, 100%. Because when it's time to be done, you're like, I'm done.
Right. Dual lives. They live dual lives. Yeah. So you have had unexplainable spiritual or religious experiences in your life. Oh my goodness, that could be a whole show. Yeah.
You're right. We should do a show about that. And not saying that it needs to be based on a theological kind of thing. The experience that we may have had, spiritual, theological, somewhere in that realm.
Whatever it is. Yeah.
It would probably help people understand at that point, no, I'm not bonkers.
Right.
Oh my God. I know all of us have had the very same thing, to where we would turn around and we're conversing with somebody, and all of a sudden we just relate something to them, and they look at you and you're like, oh, shit, I overstepped. I apologize. They're like, no, you have no idea. I thought I was the only one that might have experienced that.
Felt that way.
No,
Yeah,
we all have it.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's nice to not feel so alone.
Yeah, it is.
People need to know.
Yeah. And it's different today. I was thinking about that when I was looking at Sherry Dillard's book. It's so different today than it was when I was opening up. It's very different. There are entire sections of books at bookstores. There is anything you ever want to know online. There are people, a phone call away now. You don't have to look underground, for somebody who understands what you're doing. You remember, Pat. I mean,
you wanted anything metaphysical, they would direct you to the occult section. Oh my God. But they wouldn't know the occult.
And it was this big.
It's still called that, I think.
Last time I was
Yeah.
Yep.
If it had 2 foot and 3 shelves, you were lucky.
Right. But in some of those books, though, you could find some of those unexplainable spiritual or religious experiences. That's where you'd find them. And then you'd go in with a hat and sunglasses on so nobody knew that you were in that section. Oh, yes, I remember the day. Yeah. Okay, so you can intuit immediate judgments about people that almost always turn out to be correct. And you know what? I'm going to add to that. It's usually your first hit. It's usually your first psychic hit. And then you go, oh, I knew it. I knew it. I knew it. Or it could be a happy thing. I knew it, but either way, it's usually that first one. That's why it comes quickly.
Yeah.
You never trust. Okay, this is good. I like this a lot because this is me. You never trust what you are told or what you see on the surface. You trust what you feel. This applies to everything from jobs to partners. You can read them in ways that probably they can't even understand themselves. I can't understand it myself. I would imagine, show of hands, how many people here relate to that? Yeah. Yeah. Did you raise your hand, Jamie?
Yes, I did. Didn't I?
I was going to say, all of us.
Looking at my
I was just thinking the same thing, though, because I didn't see it either. So
Didn't do this.
All of us have had the problem.
Your hand, not your armpit, Jamie.
All of us have had the problem to where we have read a situation or a person correctly, acted upon it, and gotten into a ton of trouble because of it.
Yeah. 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 And that's when we say, I knew it. I knew it in the first place.
When you, I've had this happen a few times where a friend of mine introduces me to a new friend of theirs, and there's something not right about them, but my friend really likes them, and I just have to let it play out. And then it's like, I knew that's what was going to happen. But you can't really tell your friend that because they need to. Otherwise, you're going to look like, you're being a catty girl.
I told you so.
Well, or don't be that friend, be my friend, so you have to kind of let it play out. But I'm always very protective while I watch it play out.
Right.
Well, and often there's a lesson in there for them, whether or not they want to see it or understand it at the time. When it's all said and done, there's usually something in there that serves
there's
them.
A point that they do understand it. Yeah.
Yeah. And with that being said, because I have had a lot of, lately in the last month or so, a lot of I told you so's going on in my head, but I don't let it come out of my mouth. Because the way that I see it is that it's my job to give it and then step out of the outcome. I did what I was supposed to do by giving it. And then, and when I start to feel the I told you so's, like I have been the last month or so, I need to sit back and say, get over yourself to myself.
I don't always give it unless they ask me in those kind of situations,
Right.
I'm just like, I'll just wait. If you ask me, I'll tell you what I think. But otherwise, you know.
Yeah, same with me. Same with me. Yeah, and sometimes people take it or they don't. I think a lot of times though with this, like especially with this clairsentient type content, I think a lot of times they feel it too. You know, I do feel that they feel us feeling things, or
Right.
they feel our words, you know, when we're advising and stuff. Yeah. And I've had clients say, yeah, that feels real. And in readings too, I will say, yes, that feels like what you're saying is true, you know, or you're seeing it correctly. Yeah.
And don't you find too that sometimes if you feel like it's going to be a major blindside hit to them, I'll relate what I'm feeling, but I'll say, oh, did you see that thing on TV? Or I saw this article the other day, but I want to plant to see. I'm not telling them anything. I just want to make them aware. Does that make sense?
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's hard. Sometimes it's real hard to go.
It's not always our place to interrupt.
Right.
Yeah.
Unless they ask. Right. Okay, you can clearly perceive people's true intentions. It is immediately apparent to you why people are behaving a certain way, or if and why they have ulterior motives. Yeah.
Yep. I have had people in my life, especially my ex, he would always try to get me to not go with my gut. I'd be like, oh, I feel, you know, X, Y, and Z, or this intention is behind it. Or, you know, people can just say words and you're like, yeah, that's not.
They can just walk in the room and it's like, no.
Right, exactly. You're like, okay, your intent, you know, and I've had people, even them, like feeling like they need to convince me otherwise. And I think it's just because they sense that I know the truth. Like people know, you know, they're like, oh, she knows something about me, without knowing that you're, you know, any kind of intuitive whatever. They can look at you and be like, oh, and I feel people
avoid you,
seeing themselves to, and I'm like, and it's not even that type of conversation, but they know that I feel below the surface, and not everybody wants you to feel when they're being deceptive.
Yeah. Yep. I've had people tell me that a lot, even when I'm not intending to, but my energy can tend to be a little intense sometimes. So
she's laughing because she relates so well.
I know.
She's losing it. We lost her.
Yes, I'm laughing because I relate so well. Exactly.
Yep. So the last
again.
Sagittarius, darling.
Okay, I thought so. I was like, yeah, sign too.
With a moon and a whole bunch of other stuff in Scorpio, which is why where the depth comes from. So let me read these last three, and then we'll talk about those a little bit, and then we'll move on to the clairvoyant real quick. Those are not as many. So you understand that the pain you have felt in your life has been a gift. Ooh, that's a tough one, but yeah. You feel a strong connection with energies and spirits that are non-physical. That could manifest in a need to spend a lot of time in nature or in the middle of the night and just feel the presence, like that dark night stuff we were talking about. You feel a deep calling to help people. That was the last one. You understand the pain in your life was a gift.
See, now,
remember that lesson over and over.
As a guy, I hear the words, and it probably took me decades to learn to see it that way. And even when you read it, my first reaction is, gee, I got 4 fingers and a thumb, and I can use just one finger to tell you what I think about that. It
wouldn't be the middle one.
Yeah, you got that right.
The thumb.
Yeah, it's not the thumb. But it takes time for people to understand pain is a blessing. It's a teacher. It helps you. The biggest one out there. If it doesn't kill you, it makes you stronger.
Mm-hmm.
I had 20 years of really horrible conversations about that. It was terrible. Everybody would say it, and I gave them the finger at the time. Pat even said it to me one time when I first met her, and I went off on her. You know, thankfully it wasn't laced with a lot of foul language, but yes, it happens. But people may not realize that until they are much later in life.
Right.
So the pain is
And
over.
so-
You see it for what it really was meant to be for you. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the thumb is the new middle finger. How's that?
So I have a new saying. I'm giving you 2 thumbs up.
Thank you, Michael.
My 6-year-old.
Don't make me get my giraffe out.
I'm going to go get a big foam finger and say, this doesn't mean anything anymore. Look.
Okay. Back to our topic. So, yeah. And that I think too that's again some of the differences between men and women readers and intuitives. Men tend to be up in their heads a lot more than we women do. I was talking to in a reading for me, what I experienced is going from my heart to my head was a really long 14 inches. For men, going from their head to their heart is a really long 14 inches. It's not like that for me anymore, but when I was in the throes of it, it was really hard for me to get clarity, and have clear thought. Because I had to get up in here, and I didn't like it there. Well, not that I didn't like it there. I did once I learned how to get there, but it took a while. So clairvoyant, I think we all have these too. And you're going to like this one, Mike. You're going to give me 2 thumbs down. So here are some signs. What's that?
2 index fingers.
Yes, I'll just sit here like this.
So dreams are becoming more active and vivid. Man, did that happen. You find yourself daydreaming a lot. Sometimes, did y'all ever have the daydreams as strong as the night dreams? And as bizarre?
Very.
When you feel like there's a spirit in your space, you feel like you can see it in your mind and you have an idea of what that spirit looks like. These are clairvoyant things. You have had precognitive visions in dreams or meditations. This can even happen on the yoga mat. Yeah, like in meditation. Or I do a lot of nighttime dreaming that is very psychic or very healing or about past life. It's very clairvoyant. You guys relate to that?
Oh,
I
yeah.
have a co-host here. I don't even know what to say tonight.
She's more active tonight.
And again, this is when I was very young. My mom and dad were separated. They divorced when I was young. But when I would go to stay at my dad's house, there was something about his house. It's where we moved before they got divorced. And I would sleep there. Every night that I first got there would be a dream. And the next day, somewhere, that dream became, and it was like living in a movie. You see it, you hear it, you feel it, it's happening to you. And then the next day, it would happen just the same way that I watched it the night before. And I found, and it used to tick me off because when I was a kid, if I told somebody something about it to try to avert what was going to happen, then the rest of the dream never happened, and it made me look like an idiot. And if I didn't say anything and just sat and watched this transpire, then things would happen. Sometimes people would get hurt. So I always felt I need to tell people, even if I look like a fool, I don't care. I don't want anybody to get hurt.
Yeah.
You know, so when you're seeing that happen, it can be overwhelming, without a doubt. And you mentioned earlier, you see this picture of that particular spirit. When I lived in a different house, if I looked out the back window at night, my backyard was oftentimes littered with people that were coming to sit in the backyard because they would know the person that they wanted to talk to was going to be on the phone with me somewhere through the evening. And we're talking old ladies that were in their grandmothers, and they were walking in a rocking chair. One was knitting. You know, people would walk up to the window, and you would think it would scare the hell out of you, but you get used to it. You see things.
You do, yeah.
You know, it's not always just up here. You're seeing what's out there. It can be wild.
Yeah, I had a conversation with my guidance at the beginning where I said, don't startle me. One of the things, just don't startle me. If you're going to scare me out of my skin, I'm not doing this. I'm just not going to do it. One of the things that I do, though, is I keep, in my reading space, I keep one wall clear, because I can oftentimes scry into the wall, particularly if I'm having a really hard time seeing what I need to see, and I'll get it on the wall. It'll be shadowy, but I'll get it on the wall, and then I'll be able to get the answer. And that's clairvoyant, really clairvoyant, because I don't feel a lot with it. Do you know what I mean? Anybody else?
I tend to just look up to the left a lot instead of a wall.
Yeah.
My eye just goes straight to the left corner for some reason, whatever room I'm in, and that's how I can see some of that.
Yeah, mine kind of go back and forth, my eyes, sometimes when I'm reading. I don't know why. I guess it's recalling, because that's what it, when I read, a lot of times, particularly when the clairvoyant stuff comes in, because I get hit with the clairvoyant stuff and the feelings and the tastes and the smells and the dreams and the, personalities and all of that. So, when the clairvoyant stuff comes in, it looks like a memory to me. You know how you remember something? Just talking about this yesterday with Tammy. You remember something. You remember the food you ate. You remember the smells. You remember how the air felt. You remember the voices, the people, the perfumes, all of that stuff. And so that's what it is for me. It's like a memory, except it's not mine. And so I'm recalling, I look up too sometimes, and I look up both ways. But yeah, anybody else relate to that?
Yeah. All the time. A little piece of history. Nostradamus. If you remember the famous reader Nostradamus, from way back when readers, visionaries, clairvoyants, you did not. That got you killed by the church at that time. Nostradamus used an obsidian mirror when he did his work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a very strong crystal to use for that kind of stuff.
Very interesting.
I like going to breakfast with my psychic friend, and we can see ghosts, and I'll be like, oh, do you see that over there? And she'll be like, oh, he's wearing this. And I'll be like, yeah, and he's got this on. And we're like playing off of each other because she can see. It's really cool to play out in public like that. They call us the good witches.
When you were talking about dreams, I will have very vivid dreams of something big's going to happen in my life, like the night before our son broke both his arms at the same time, 10 days before.
Oh, yeah.
I had same dream 3 times, and my husband said, you and your dreams, shut up and go sleep. So I went to sleep because I couldn't tell if he was dead or alive the way they were carrying him. because his arms were crossed over his chest. So when we went to the picnic, I didn't wear my glasses and I didn't wear my contacts because if it was more than 5 feet away, it was going to be a blur. What did I care? So when our daughter's 9 at the time comes and goes, Mommy, this man's carrying Paul. And I looked at my husband, who was a major non-believer, and I said, go ahead, tell me he's your height, he's got what color hair, blah, 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 blah. He said, I ain't telling you nothing, because I just described to him the man that I had seen in my dream. It kind of started changing things around. It's like, oh, crap. But yeah, if it's something really important in my life, I will have a dream that will give me a theme, or it will show me exactly what's going to happen.
Right. Here's one, Pat, that you were talking about earlier about vision. You see things out of the corner of your eyes to the point where you are double taking and double checking that you just didn't see something. And the other one is you're starting to see flashes of light or having blurry vision. Yep. And then one here is you're good at coming up with descriptive metaphors to explain things. Yeah. We all do that here.
Look at Michael. Just look at Michael.
Yep.
And making up words.
Yeah.
There was
that people relate to, even though they're not part of the English language.
There was something that you said about that. When people, and all of us I know do it, we see something out of the corner of our eye. I know it probably took all of us a little bit of time to learn not to look at it. Because the minute that you start to really focus all of your energy on what is there, it retreats, it takes off. Even if it is somebody that you really want to talk to. Mm-hmm. So there was something that happened. Everybody remembers Ed and Lorraine Warren. And if they don't, they were the people that investigated the Amityville Horror House. They were the ones that did the movie The Conjuring, things like that. But there was a piece in one of that movie, that I found interesting because I related to it almost automatically. She could feel something out of the corner of her eye behind her. She didn't turn to look. She took a little compact mirror out and looked in the mirror. Mm-hmm. And there are often times that works for a lot of people, being able to look in a reflective surface to see what is there without focusing your physical attention and sight on what is there. Right.
Well, and that's part of the point I was making when we were talking about you want to see everything. And Michael, you said, no, I don't want to see. I don't want to see everything. But psychic vision does see everything, even those things that we don't want to see.
Yep.
So it's like in What the Bleep, one of the people on there said, it was the person that Jay-Z Knight channels, said that you want to be like a camera lens. It has no objections, no objective, nothing. It just sees what's there. It takes what's there. And so that's, I think, why a lot of times when we take pictures of a camera, you see little things. Some people say, oh, that's just, a light fracture or, whatever. It's not. Well, why would there just be, some fractal light there out of nowhere? Because it's not just fractal light.
Nope.
Well, it may be, but it is someone, it is something, it is energy. And so that's that vision. Yeah. And we're past time here. I just want to tell you. So, the last two on here are when you listen to a conversation, you often have an inner scene playing out in your mind where you can see it unfolding as it's being discussed. Yeah. And even before the words come out of the person's mouth. You often create entire scenes in your mind about the future. Uh-huh. I do. Yeah. See, the thing though about the clairvoyance is that it doesn't come with feelings and tastes and body feelings and all of that. That's why people try to work at that so much, because it's not as exhausting as being, clairsentient. And that's what my thing is that's my number one. Is the
I have
feeling.
A question for everybody. Out of all of these things, do you get a full effect, a full mixture of all of this? Or do you just, it's like Jamie had said, she gets bits, she'll get this part, this part, this part. And please, for the people that are watching or listening, it does not at all mean somebody is a lesser reader or lesser psychic or capability. Exactly. And that's people really need to understand that. Just because they can't or they choose not to do one thing or another does not make them a poor reader. That's bullshit.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm asking because I'm curious. For me, it has been full-blown everything all the time. I don't.
Yeah, me too.
I don't get to turn it off. You know what I mean? It's the whole spectrum. You know. Now, thankfully, over a period of years, they have said, well, you know, you don't really need to feel this part. It's there, but it only feels this big this time. Brenda, you say you feel. You have a full spectrum.
I get all of it. Yeah, I get all of it. But I do have a switch. I can turn it off. And people sometimes I'll meet somebody or have friends or something, and you know, I don't talk about it very much, but sometimes somebody will talk about it, and someone will come up to me and say, well, if you're psychic, then what am I thinking? Yeah. And I will say, yeah, well, there's your thumb up. They don't realize that it doesn't work that way, first of all. But I'm not going to go into a full blown explanation of it. Yeah, exactly. But I just say, I'm sure you don't want me letting your thoughts out here. We'll just keep that between you and me. Or the other thing is, you know, is you know, somebody will think I'm reading them all the time, and I'm not. I do have a switch that's off. First of all, you know, I don't mean this. I don't mean this like to be like a smart ass, but it's really not that interesting. You know, I mean, it's just not that interesting to me. So no, I really don't want to know, because, you know, I mean, I have over 29,000 readings logged in one place that I read. And I am very interested when I'm doing a reading, but I am not interested in going out and reading people. So it's exhausting.
Yeah. Jamie?
Yeah.
I don't have everything. I don't. I still feel, even I'm clairsentient and I'm an empath. And I have a really hard time turning the empath part off, the feeling part off, because I'll feel even if I don't want to. And if I'm not paying attention, I'm assuming it's my feeling and not someone else's. So I'm still kind of trying to work with my guides on that one. But yeah, I don't really see anything unless I'm doing a reading, you know, and usually I'll say, oh, I see this, but I'm usually using that just as a vernacular kind of thing, you know, because 90% of the time I'm not really seeing it. It's just, but it's easier to say, I see this to somebody. Yeah.
Right.
Pat?
What comes to me is what's going to help me relate to them the best. It can be everything, or it can be only one or two things. And as far as people asking me about reading, I learned a long time. I have played cards with, and I mentioned it before, some of the same women for almost 50 years. There are only 3 of us left out of the 8. But early on, I would know whose husband was messing around, which wife was messing around, what they were fighting about. I'm sitting there in a room with 3 tables or 2 tables of 4 people each, and they're all yelling at me. And I consider it an invasion of privacy. So when people come to me and they say, I go, no, because I call it my fiduciary responsibility. I don't want nor I need to know. If you come to me for reading, that's different. But no, I'm not going to do that here because it's an invasion of privacy.
Yep.
Imagine knowing everybody around you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, you don't need to be on all the time. That's the other thing.
Yeah.
You need some downtime. Yeah,
Yep.
I can't go into the grocery store and be reading everybody all the time, or to every event. Or
that's why I isolate and watch my Netflix. I'm happy.
Heather?
But Frankie and Johnny?
Heather, what about you?
Well, kind of like what Jamie said. I can turn it off, but the feeling for me is more difficult to turn off. Um, but I do think it's funny that you guys brought, the whole randomly reading people, because when I do, again, it doesn't come up a lot with new people, but sometimes it comes up and they're like, "Oh, you're a psychic. Well, what am I going to eat for dinner? Shouldn't you tell me what I'm going to eat for dinner?" And first of all, yeah, it doesn't work like that. And, sometimes it does. People get that you can feel their energy. Like they're just putting up their walls. Like, "Oh my gosh, she's going to read my mind," or what. No, we're not walking around randomly reading everybody. I mean, as an empath, you feel different energies, you get impressions, and that's going to happen even without connecting. But we're not walking around reading everyone. So, and we're not going to tell you what we're having for dinner unless, your guide really needs you to have that information. That's just not true. And I do get people people all want to know about this and this and this. And sometimes I just have to be like, "Look, I have to tell you what's coming through first. And then we can get down to all the stuff that you want to know. But whatever's going to come through first, this is the stuff that you need to know. And then we can answer your questions."
And oftentimes they'll say, "I don't have any questions. You just answered everything in one way or another that I was concerned about." And I say, "That's great."
Yep. It's usually how it ends up working, isn't it?
Yeah, okay. And sometimes we actually get answers too in readings. Yeah. Perfect. So you got something, Michael?
Oh, no. I was just going to say perfect. I was curious of how everybody kind of went around things. No, it's all you. Yeah. Time to wrap up.
Yeah. We went way over. So thanks for hanging with us. And we didn't get to talk about tools or no tools.
That might be a whole different show.
It will. And in the next 2 shows, I guess next week, it looks like I'm going to be doing talking about being a medical intuitive and orthomolecular medicine and how I use it in my work. And then the week after that, Jamie is going to be talking about crystals, and then we'll go from there. So I hope you had a good time, everybody.
I'm looking forward to that because it's kind of like the rest of us are going to be going to class. So I'm sure everybody's going to have a lot of questions.
Yeah. And then the others are going to do theirs later. We just are not sure what that's going to be yet. So we'll announce as it comes through. We are here every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. You can find us on Facebook. Terra Turas is the name of our page, and you can get our contact information there. And you can also find us on terraturas.com. We'll see you next week. Have a good week, everyone.
Namaste.